Hi, today I'm going to talk about how I got started as an artist, and I'll also be showing you or talking about my 3 favourite museums in Singapore. Hi, I'm Jennifer Lim. I'm an Australian artist based in Singapore, and I love helping people connect to culture through my original artworks, which are inspired by history and heritage. So how did I get started as an artist? Well, it was kind of a 15-year journey that started in Canberra but restarted in Sydney. So that's a bit international for you. I actually graduated from the Australian National University, and I did a double major in printmaking in Japanese. It was pretty specialised. How did I get to that in the first place? Well, many people may not actually know, but I spent 1 year in Tokyo as a child. So when I was about 6, my mother was posted to the National University of Tokyo, and there I stayed in downtown Shibuya, well, kind of the outskirts of Shibuya really, and I went to American International School there for 1 year, which is why I say Z or Z or whatever, I get mixed up even now. And I really enjoyed that experience in that it was one of my first memories, and many weekends we went to visit temples, and I remember flipping through my parents' prints that they had bought, their ukiyo-e prints, and it was a year that left a big impression on me. So much so that when I started high school in Canberra, I decided that I wanted to study Japanese, as it had always been in the back of my mind. And so I did that, and after 2 years of studying, I thought that I knew enough Japanese to go on high school exchange. So I lived in Nagoya with a Japanese family there, and no, I couldn't say a thing. So for the first 3 months, I was like a tap with water turned off until I finally learned to speak. And that was a really great thing, because my host mother and I, Mrs. Samizo, who I'm still very close to, discovered that we had an awful lot of things in common. And they were things like antique markets down at the temple, looking at kimono, flower arranging. Hi Michele, how are you? Thanks for joining me today. Flower arranging and all sorts of Japanese arts and crafts, including food. I put on 10 kilos that year. So we had lots of things in common, and she really helped open my eyes up to Japan, and I learned many things from her that year. So we lived in the same house, and she considers me her Australian daughter, so to speak. So it was with that experience in Japanese arts and culture that I decided I'd really like to continue my Japanese, but at the same time also pursue my passion for art. And after I graduated, just looking at my notes here, because as a child I'd always loved building cubby houses and sewing my own clothes and all sorts of creative things, anything that involved sort of using my hands. And in fact, at one point I thought I was either going to be a carpenter or a mechanic or a fashion designer. So all those sorts of things that involve the creative side, so to speak. So after I graduated from Japanese and printmaking at the ANU in Canberra, I was offered a job in Okinawa, Japan, which is the most southern part of Japan. And it was an experience that also opened up my eyes to the non-homogeneous side of Japan, because Okinawa is quite different from the other regions in that it has its own indigenous culture, overlaid by culture from Japan, America, and a touch of, a lot actually, of Chinese culture. So it was a beautiful mix and a great experience there. I ended up using my Japanese and English skills for the next 6 years, and I was based mostly in Tokyo, working as a translator. I also spent some time helping a fashion label start from scratch, and that was a really great experience, interesting to the creative side, but also the marketing side about business and about Japanese taste, and also expat taste, because our label was mostly geared towards non-Japanese residents. that was a really good time. And after then I moved back to Australia to be with my family there, and I decided that I wanted to even further do something that was more creative, but maybe with a bit of a practical element. So then I started studying building design, and I worked in that area for several years before moving to Singapore. So after I moved to Singapore, I already had an 8-month-old baby, and then it was not long, well, kind of, before I also had another one on the way. So at 25 weeks pregnant, I got a sudden phone call, and I found out that my father, who had been traveling in Thailand, had a severe stroke. So I went over to Thailand to see him, and he was in ICU. Basically he was lucky to survive that. It was a major stroke, and it has affected his ability to talk and walk, but he's still alive. That was a very shocking experience, and it really made me honestly reflect upon life and how short life could be. And I had been toying with the idea, or sort of avoiding it, but toying at the same time, of trying to get back into making art, which is what I thought, trying to get back. But it was at that point I thought, well, maybe I should stop talking about it and start doing it. So a little while later, 38 weeks pregnant, was when I entered my first artwork, a Japanese woodblock print actually, in the Affordable Art Fair Singapore. So that was back in 2014. I had a really good response, and I built up a lot of confidence through that experience. After my son was born, it wasn't long before I got back into the routine of making art, and also started doing some creative workshops here in Singapore as well. So yes, life is short, make art. I haven't looked back, there's been no time to look back, and I'm really grateful for the support from family and friends and clients who have helped me gain courage to do what I really love to do. And one of my things is I really like to sort of communicate without words, and also communicating stories about Singapore or stories about local experiences through my artwork is also a lot of fun as well. And the places that I get inspiration from are many, not only my local market, where you can find me washed up for lunch most days, speaking to my friends in whatever language works. I speak 5 words of Chinese and even less of Malay, but somehow we communicate. Many people can speak English down there anyway, it's just the older generation. But they're lots of fun to try and communicate with as well. So I'd also, so that's my story. Please ask me if you have any questions. I'm still learning to tell it. Sometimes it's a little bit embarrassing almost that it was that incident that prompted me, but sometimes you need those kind of moments perhaps to really make you evaluate if what you're doing is right in your life. And for me it was that. So I'd also like to speak today about my 3 favourite museums in Singapore. They all have a common theme. They're all located in heritage buildings, surprise, surprise. But the first one I'd like to talk about is let me double check, I think it's I've got my paper the wrong way around, Malay Heritage Centre. So if any of you have been to Bugis, not only will you see lots of new shopping places there, but if you go a little bit further around the corner, you'll get to Arab Street. And it's near Arab Street where the Malay Heritage Centre is located. Apparently, I thought the building was pretty beautiful. It was built some 160 years ago. And it was built by the Sultan Ali, who was the son of Sultan Hussein Sheikh, or Shah. And it is a gorgeous building, air-conned, and you can find the story of the Malay connection to Singapore. And it's really interesting to discover there are all sorts of other Malay groups as well, such as the Bugis, which is what Bugis is named after. And they were seafaring people originally from Sulawesi in Indonesia, and they started coming to Singapore as early as 1819. And you can also learn about the Minangkabau. I hope I'm saying that right. They're a very interesting group of people who have the largest matriarchal society in the world. And the women wear a kind of a headdress that's wrapped around like horns, like buffalo horns. And in fact, there's a restaurant right next to the Malay Heritage Centre, which is called Minang. And there you could find nasi padang and beef rendang and all sorts of delicious things like that. The gift store there is also really nice, and you can also, there's also a toilet. Public toilets are sometimes hard to find, and the gardens are also really beautiful as well. So you can stroll through there. I think there's a herbal garden as well. But that's a very interesting place to see where the Peranakans fit in, and I'll talk about them later on. Taking a lot of their influence from the Malays. You can see that sort of in the dress that they wear. But jumping to the Chinese side is the Sun Yat-sen Memorial Hall. Now this is, can you see my focus? Sorry, it's kind of like focusing in and out. Michelle, tell me that you can see me clearly, please. So the Sun Yat-sen Memorial Hall is a place that sort of a bit mysterious to me till I discovered it was actually less than 2 kilometres away over the highway bridge. And that was built in 1902. It's just on Balestier Road, so it's between Novena and Topayo. Quite convenient to get to, and nearby is a shopping centre with fair price and a food court, so that's always really good to know. And it is a very beautiful building in that it's built in colonial style, so it's got these columns at the front and a portico, I think you call it, where the carriage, I presume, with horses used to drive in. And it's 2-storey, it's very ornate with beautiful gardens as well. And this Sun Yat-sen is devoted to the memory of Dr. Sun Yat-sen, who was the founding father of the Republic of China. And he was instrumental in overthrowing the Qing dynasty. So you can read and see lots of images of him, but also Singapore's connection to China, and a lot of the founding figures of Singapore are also there, such as Lim Boon Keng. You've probably heard of Boon Keng Road. Now, Lim Boon Keng was also a very interesting figure in that he co-founded the Singapore Chinese Girls' School. And in those days, we're talking about 1899, it was rather forward thinking to send girls to school. But he was encouraging of the idea, and it was a really good opportunity for women to start getting an education. He also was against opium and led various anti-opium campaigns, which were limited in success, but he really was against that. During World War II, he was also a hero in that when the Japanese army demanded, I've heard this, I think it's true, when the Japanese army demanded payment in return for stopping killing of young men, Suqing massacre, he was one of the ones who was instrumental in gathering in funds and encouraging other Chinese and Chinese Peranakans to pitch in and pay the Japanese. And on a lighter note, the third place I love to hang out is the Peranakan Museum. This is also a gorgeous museum, a gorgeous building built in 1912. It also is got all those columns, all sorts of wavy, curvy things going on, and that's in a really convenient spot, just behind City Hall. It's called the Eclectic Classical Style. That kind of sums up a lot of Peranakan architecture, to be honest, with lots of frills and bells and flowery decorative things. So there, also air-conditioned, you can find 10 galleries that talk about mainly about the Chinese Peranakan experience. Chinese Peranakans are descendants of Chinese traders who came to Southeast Asia as long as 400-500 years ago, and they built up their businesses with the help of their local wives. And together with their Chinese ancestry and local Malay customs, they established their own hybrid culture. So you can see elements of not only Malay and Chinese, but even Indian and Portuguese and Dutch in their culture. The museum also has, I think, one Sunday every month. It's called Straits Family Sunday. So you can go and join in lots of activities. They're usually craft and cultural based, and that's a lot of fun as well. There's an upcoming talk apparently on the photography show that the museum has. This is a very special exhibition because the Chinese Peranakans were some of the first to adopt photography, the use of camera, very expensive in the early days. So this special exhibition that they currently have on gives you a window into early days in Singapore, but also in nearby Indonesia as well. That's really worthwhile checking out. And in fact, if you do have time, I recommend you see the museum fairly soon, because I hear that it's going to be closed for the next 2 years from December onwards. They're planning some renovations, maybe an extension at the back, I'm not quite sure, but that it's kind of needed. It's a beautiful museum, but it will be nice to have those added things to it. So that's all I'm going to talk about today. I'll leave some links to the 3 museums I mentioned. They were the Malay Heritage Centre and the Sun Yat-sen Memorial Hall and the Peranakan Museum. I'll leave those links in the comments section, and please let me know if you want me to talk about any other places in Singapore that you've heard of or have visited or planning to visit. There's lots of little gems around here. It really is a very interesting place to live. Well, that's it for now, and I'm off to my monthly AusCham meeting, which is downtown, and I hope you have a nice evening and talk to you soon. Thanks for joining me.